Hello and welcome to Volusia Magazine. I'm Amber Osman. In this week's episode, tours are available for the Lady Philomena. We'll have details on how you can lower library fines, and residents bring awareness for safer traffic intersections. Later on in the program, Joanne Magley talks with Joe Nolin about the new addition to the county's artificial reef program. Those segments and more coming right up on Volusia Magazine. I hope you stay tuned. Throughout the world, the white cane is used by people who are blind or visually impaired as a tool for safe navigation. The cane is a symbol of the user's skills and talents, mobility, and independence. It also allows sighted people to recognize that the users are visually impaired. White Cane Awareness Day is celebrated every October to honor the achievements of people who are blind or visually impaired and to increase awareness of white cane traffic safety laws.
We want to bring attention of drivers and the public to the fact that there are people out there crossing the street and drivers need to be aware. One of the problems that we have is cars not paying attention, and they have the green light, so they go ahead and do their turn or whatever they're doing without looking to see if the pedestrian is there. There needs to be a better job of enforcement of the laws. Also, drivers need to be more aware of pedestrians out there and not be focused on their driving as much as what's around them.
Local government and law enforcement officials recently gathered with people who are blind or visually impaired to drive home this point. Volusia County Council member Billy Wheeler presented a proclamation supporting the event and urged residents to be cautious around all pedestrians. Meanwhile, Sheriff Mike Chitwood put on a blindfold and crossed a busy Daytona Beach street to demonstrate the uncertainty a blind person feels in traffic. Daytona Beach police officers were on scene to pull over drivers and hand out warnings to those who did not yield to pedestrians and crosswalks. According to Florida's white cane law, motorists must come to a complete stop before reaching a location where a blind or mobility impaired pedestrian is crossing a public street or highway with a white cane, a guide dog, or mobility aid, then proceed with caution. It's important that motorists be careful and considerate around all pedestrians. It's also important for pedestrians to abide by traffic rules, use crosswalks, and make themselves as visible as possible to motorists. All aboard! It's time to gather your crew for a unique nautical event. Volusia County is hosting a two-day open house event in recognition of marine recreation in the area. The celebration will take place from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. November 11th and 12th at Sea Love Marina in Ponce Inlet. At the event, attendees will be able to view the Tug Everglades, a 90-foot steel tugboat, and climb aboard the Lady Philomena, a 150-foot ship, for an in-depth tour. Attendees should wear sensible shoes, as tours will involve navigating ladders and uneven surfaces.
We are really excited about the Lady Philomena as a great addition to our artificial reef system offshore Volusia County. It's a 150-foot steel ship with a significantly tall profile, 30 to 40 feet. It's got a large cargo chamber down the center of the ship, a huge space, right, which will make incredible habitat for large fishes in and around this area. It's going to make a great diving site, an incredible fishing site as well.
Pending weather conditions, the county will sink the Lady Philomena and the Tug Everglades between Monday, November 13th and Sunday, November 19th. Staff from the Marine Science Center, Coastal, and other county divisions will be on site to provide information and answer questions about the county's reef system, parks, and other environmental assets. The weekend event is the ideal opportunity to learn more about Volusia County's Marine Recreation and Artificial Reef program, which has bbeen around since the 1970s. This week on the Business Beat, we'll join Shelley Safranek as she checks in with a local entrepreneur who is processing a native plant into a successful business, one sip at a time.
The American tea business is valued around $1 billion a year and growing. It's estimated we import millions of pounds of tea annually into the United States and grow almost none domestically. Those statistics are changing thanks to local brothers Brian and Kyle White.
What you're looking at is more than just a bin of leaves. This may be the next cash crop for Florida.
And it's the leaves in this bin that are the secret sauce, so to speak, for the White brothers business, Yaupon Brothers American Tea Company. The leaves are yaupon, a plant native to Florida.
Yaupon is an indigenous native Floridian plant in the holly family. It is the only caffeinated plant native to the North American continent. It is related to other caffeinated holly species like yerba mate, which is a $1 billion a year cash crop in South America. And it's also an antioxidant superfood.
Now, if Brian sounds like a yaupon expert, that probably has to do with his growing up in Volusia County and being a native plant enthusiast. It was in high school that Brian first discovered and experimented with yaupon, and the rest you can say is history, as over time he kept experimenting and creating different blends of herbal tea made from yaupon. Once Brian and Kyle realized they couldn't buy the herbal tea anywhere else, they decided to start their own company, imagining a new industry centered around yaupon.
I think yaupon has a lot of potential for the Florida agriculture industry because it's a native crop. It doesn't need any type of artificial irrigation or pesticides or fertilizers. It doesn't damage the environment, and it's a healthy product for consumers, and it's a caffeinated, stimulating beverage, so I think it could really become a popular item.
According to White, before any Europeans made their way over the pond, before Rome and Jesus, and even before Babylon and ancient Egypt, yaupon was being consumed by Florida's indigenous people. In fact, archaeological records show that yaupon has been consumed in Florida for at least 10,000 years. It's also been found thousands of miles outside of its native range, suggesting that it was the subject of a sophisticated trade network. Without truly understanding why yaupon quit being consumed hundreds of years ago, the discovery and experimentation of yaupon by the White brothers enabled them to reintroduce it into commerce in 2012.
There was no commercial supply chain for yaupon before we started producing it. There's no guidebook, there's nobody to ask. So we had to learn everything from the ground up. That's from growing and cultivation to harvesting to processing and to packaging and distribution. This piece of equipment is called a withering rack. When the fresh yaupon comes in, it's spread out no more than 4 inches deep on this rack. It can hold about 20 pounds at a time. Over 3 to 5 days, the yaupon dries out as air is circulated through the withering rack, and it kind of lets it cure nice and slow, gives it a sweet flavor and aroma instead of a harsher, bitter. The heat gives it kind of a harsher flavor.
By 2013, the brothers were the first processor, handler, and grower of yaupon to adhere to the strictest standards in the land, the USDA organic certification. By 2014, their fields had grown to 50 acres and their tea was sold in 20 states, Canada, and the United Kingdom, and in more than 180 retail locations. Today, Yaupon Brothers maintains partnerships with Florida farmers to cultivate yaupon, and they grow their own shade-grown yaupon on a 12-acre farm in Volusia County.
Locally, our yaupon is available at Love Whole Foods. It's available at Heath's Natural Foods, Island Roasters, Sweet Marley's, Trilogy Coffee, several other local retailers. It's also available on our website and on Amazon.
Check out the company's website at yauponbrothers.com or follow them on social media. For the Business Beat, I'm Shelley Safranek.
Here's a novel way to pay off your library fines. Volusia County's 13 public library branches will be accepting food for fines from November 13th through the 27th. Patrons with late fees will receive a $1 reduction of overdue fines up to $25 for each undamaged, unexpired, boxed, or canned non-perishable food item they bring to the library.
This is certainly an opportunity for them to clear those fines and do something good for the community. And a lot of the folks who participate donate more food than is necessary to clear their fines. Or we have a lot of library users who know that we're collecting food and will simply just make donations during this time. So it's a really great opportunity for our library users to participate in helping out in the community.
The donated food will be used to refill local food banks. The Food for Fines program is part of the 7th annual Feed the Need food drive spearheaded by Volusia County government. County employees are joining with other public employees from Volusia County Schools, Daytona State College, the Florida Department of Health, and local cities to see which organization can collect the most food per full-time employee. You can drop off food at any of the library system's branches, which are located throughout the county. For more information, you can visit volusialibrary.org. Improperly discarded fishing line is a danger to creatures both in and out of the water. The Underwater Cleanup Program is Volusia County's solution to the problem. Gary Daniels gives us an inside look at this vital program.
When people think about the Ponce Inlet Jetty, they think about the pretty views and wildlife that you might be able to see out there and the fact that it's a great fishing spot. But what they don't think about is what they can't see, and that's what's going on underneath the water. Fishing line takes hundreds of years to decompose. So over all the years that people have fished out on the jetty, all that fishing line that has either broken from their fishing poles or that blew into the water has gotten entangled on all the rocks. So this means that any fish or crabs or other sea life can get entangled in it. So what we do is we go down and we try to clean up as much of that monofilament and marine debris as possible. When I first dive in, I'm checking my surroundings, making sure that there's nothing harmful in the way. We usually will follow that anchor line down and just gradually go down. And sometimes it does take your eyes a little bit of time to adjust because our water clarity isn't perfect a lot of the time. So sometimes we only have a couple feet of visibility. So it's just a little bit of adjusting at first. And then as soon as you can see a little bit better, then you just get to work. We usually will swim around a little bit until we find a more dense spot of fishing line that's just, once we see that, it looks like netting over top of the rocks, we just start cutting it away and pulling it off of the rocks, putting it into a bag, separating anything that might be entangled in it. So a lot of the time sea urchins are hung up in the fishing line. We have found crabs and horseshoe crabs and various types of fish that are still hooked on the hooks that are in the line as well. So it's a matter of, sometimes it does take a lot of time just sorting through the things that need to get out of there versus leaving the native animals and plants behind. So it's not just grabbing it, it's a lot of sorting and making sure that you're not affecting the environment in a harmful way. Dolphins, manatees, basically no marine mammal is immune to being able to get entangled. And the fishing line is so strong, and the more it gets wrapped onto, say, a pectoral flipper, it gets tighter and tighter until eventually it can completely amputate the pectoral flipper. This could be catastrophic for the animal. The problem goes from under the water all the way out into the regular environment. Birds are forever getting entangled in the fishing line as well, either during casting or the line that is just left on the piers instead of being put into one of the recycling containers. They fly off, unfortunately, and then that line can get entangled in trees and it traps them there as well. think one of my favorite moments when we were diving was it was towards the end of the dive. We were actually already beginning to come up, and a couple of manatees came swimming past. So just another reminder of why we're out there, why we're doing this, because it's their environment as well, and it was pretty awesome to see them come swimming past you when you're in their territory.
Let's join Community Information Director Joanne Magley in the studio with her guest, Joe Nolin, Construction Manager for the Volusia County Coastal Division.
Thanks, Amber. Well, we have an exciting event to talk about today. On November 11th and 12th, the county will be celebrating marine life and recreation as we prepare to expand the artificial reef system here in Volusia County. So joining me today is Joe Nolin with the county's Coastal Division. Hi, Joe.
How you doing, Joanne?
Thanks for being here. So I mentioned this event we're having November 11th and 12th. It's like an open house event. It's at the Sea Love Marina in Ponce Inlet, and the main attraction is a tour of the Lady Philomena. This is a 150-foot ship donated to the county by the U.S. Customs Division. So tell us about this ship and then what the county is going to use it for.
Well, this is a really exciting project, and earlier this year we were notified, statewide, really everyone in the state was notified, that the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency had seized a vessel on the Miami River hauling illegal contraband, and they were willing to donate the vessel to an artificial reef program that would make the commitment to sink it as an artificial reef offshore. And Volusia County took advantage of this opportunity to get the vessel for free, and we were very happy. It was just the perfect size vessel for our waters, right? Our continental shelf is not the deepest drop off, if you will. So a small 150-foot little island trader type ship, such as the Lady Philomena, is perfect for wreck diving and fishing and spearfishing offshore the Volusia coast.
So we plan to sink this ship off of reef site 12, I believe?
Correct, at reef site number 12 southwest. It's in about 80 to 85 feet of water and about 9 miles off the coast. And we're going to sink it right next to an existing concrete culvert and structure pile that we deployed back in 2010. So the ship will be right next to an existing reef site, an artificial reef that's a popular fishing location, and will really make an incredible diving site and fishing site.
So talk about the county's artificial reef system. We have a pretty expansive system. A lot of people may not be aware of what's out in the waters there. When did we begin constructing these artificial reefs?
Well, in 1980, the Ponce de Leon Inlet Port Authority and the city of New Smyrna Beach, believe it or not, and the Halifax Sport Fishing Club combined forces and sunk a 450-foot Liberty ship called the Mindanao out on reef site number 3. And that was kind of the initial start of the Volusia County artificial reef system, particularly the county's Port Authority's involvement. And since then, we built 1 or 2 reefs a year up until around 2007, and then we started to ramp it up from there, and we now have 148 artificial reef sites. Now each site is only a 1/4 acre of mostly concrete culverts and structures. I think we have 5 steel ships, 5 barges, and a couple of tugs, steel tugs deposited as well out there that we've acquired over the years, right? And sunk. Our reefs are located anywhere from 5 to 15 miles offshore in anywhere from 65 to 90 feet of water. And they're located on federally permitted artificial reef construction areas, which are about a mile square. And we make multiple placements within that square mile. So that there's a bunch of different fishing sites in that location.
So you mentioned concrete pieces and things. So where does the county get these pieces for use in the artificial reef system?
Well, we get it from concrete structure and culvert manufacturers or road construction projects or bridge demolition projects like the Broadway Bridge or the old South Bridge in New Smyrna, the Port Orange Bridge. When all these new high-rise bridges were rebuilt, a lot of times the DOT or whatever agency was building that bridge would allow the contractor an option to deposit the material offshore on one of our county permitted artificial reef sites. So we've got a lot of bridge material at these locations as well. But we've got it all for free. It's all been donated by concrete manufacturers. We even got a bunch of Jersey barriers, the road construction barriers from DOT, from the recent I-95 widening project in Brevard and South Volusia and Central Volusia.
So talk about the marine life. I know you've said before that immediately once you've started creating these reefs, new life will start to grow on them and be attracted to them. So talk about that process.
That's exactly correct, Joanne. On the continental shelf offshore Volusia and mostly northeast Florida, all the way up to Cape Hatteras, is largely devoid of live reef habitat, right? Especially near the coast within 20 miles. There's very little, if any, marine reef habitat, right? You simply have a broad area of sandy desert, if you will, or undersea desert. And so when you place materials such as concrete culverts and structures or a shipwreck on there, it immediately becomes an oasis for all kinds of marine life that attaches directly to the structure, right, and the concrete and the steel, such as barnacles and tunicate and bryozoan and sponges and soft and hard corals. They attach, those are animals, right, that attach directly to the material, right, because that's how they live, on a living reef structure. And immediately you get bait fish and small fish, shrimp, and crabs to graze on that living material that coats the structure, right? So it is interesting. And then on up the food web, you get all kinds of larger fish like snappers, groupers, and then even up in the upper water column fish and pelagic fish like amberjack, king mackerel, barracuda, dolphin, and so forth. And you get sea turtles, believe it or not, and manta rays, and all kinds of other marine life that just is attracted to this structure because it changes the currents in that localized area, and it harbors food, right? There's food grazing sources on the structures themselves, and it provides cryptic hidey holes and habitat for fish to hide, right? Smaller fish to hide. So and to live out their life, right, or spawn or what have you. So that's kind of the way it works in a thumbnail sketch ecologically.
So what kind of time frame are we talking about as far as being able to see larger types of fish after a newly constructed reef site?
A couple of months.
Wow, that's
it's
amazing.
incredible. We have observed directly all kinds of fish showing up, and within 3 or 4 months, you'll get red snapper, black sea bass, flounder, that quickly. I mean, the material just grows incredibly because the ocean itself is chock full of material and phytoplankton and zooplankton free drifting through the water column all the time, like barnacles looking for a place to settle on, right? So when they find these structures, they settle out and then start their life and grow bigger, and then fish, shrimp, and crabs follow suit.
And artificial reefs are really a big boost for ecotourism, for the economy in general. It affects a wide variety of people and businesses.
Absolutely. The recreational and charter fishing in our localized area and all throughout Florida where artificial reefs are at various communities where artificial reefs are constructed, it really drives the boating industry and marine economy in a lot of ways, right? Because there's close locations that you can safely get to offshore, maybe for smaller boat anglers, right, that only have to run 5 or 6 miles out and have a deep sea fishing experience where previously they would have to run 15 to 20 miles out, which is maybe on the unsafe edge for certain small boat anglers and that sort of thing. So it really does fuel the boating and marine economy locally. It's infrastructure, right? Reefs are infrastructure that is available to these folks to now use, and the charter fishermen love them because the close in they can run a half-day trip, and the big head boat operators like the Critter Fleet and the Sea Spirit that run out of Ponce Inlet, they can make a half-day trip out there, catch some quality fish with their clients, and come back in and run out in the afternoon and do it all over again.
I know you're a diver. What is what is the benefit, or what's the cool factor when you have a ship down there?
Well, shipwrecks for divers, it's my favorite diving there is. They're fascinating because as you descend through the water column, this giant structure, you know, that is a ship starts to materialize sort of out of the mist, right, and reveal itself. And you can, if on good days, you can see the bow and the stern and the rudder and the sides of the ship, and it's just incredible. They often harbor the largest animals we have offshore, Goliath groupers, right? So you'll get these giant Goliath groupers that are bigger than us, right, swimming around the ship and living inside it, and they're like the top level predator there. They own that place, right? And they're incredibly beautiful animals too, and you can get real close to them. You know, it's amazing. So that's the allure to me. Plus, shipwrecks also draw a lot of aggregations of snapper, spawning aggregations, believe it or not, of snapper and other species through the summer months, especially on the full moon. So it's really fascinating to dive these shipwrecks. It's my favorite kind of diving. The culverts and concrete piles are fascinating as well, and they draw their own set of unique organisms, right, and certain type species of fish throughout seasonal changes throughout the year, like a lot of flounder, and a lot of spear fishermen love to get flounder and other fishes that are found on the culvert piles. So it's it really is incredible, and we're lucky to have an ocean here and an inlet, right, that we can access these locations. And for diving, it's just a real enjoyable sport and fun.
Well, for the event, I want to mention that, again, it's November 11th and 12th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Sea Love Marina, and we'll have a number of educational booths set up for people to learn more about the coastal environment, and for people to find out more about the artificial reefs that we have. How can they get more information about that?
Go to volusia.org, coastal division, and the Artificial Reef Program. And there's a complete listing of artificial reef locations and coordinates for those fishermen and divers that want to go visit these sites. There's a couple of other websites. VolusiaReefs.org, which is the Volusia Reef Research Team, also maintains a comprehensive listing of our reef sites. And then VolusiaReefReport.org is another website that also has a listing of the artificial reef sites offshore Volusia. Getting a lot of good press lately. Coastal Angler Magazine and the Hot Knots newsletter with the Halifax Sport Fishing Club, so a lot of good information getting out there. So. All
right, Joe Nolin with the county's Coastal Division, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Joanne. It's always wonderful.
Amber, back to you.
Thanks, Joanne, and thank you for watching Volusia Magazine. If you have any questions about the show, you can feel free to give us a call at any of the numbers you see listed here, or you can log on to volusia.org and click on the News tab at the top of the screen to find us. And we hope you won't forget to listen to Volusia Today. That's Volusia County Government's weekly public radio broadcast. Volusia Today airs every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Sunday mornings on the local radio stations you see on your screen. For Volusia Magazine, I'm Amber Osmond, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.